Hello collective, my name is Tan and this is Artemis Oracle. Today I want to do a reading and I pulled out some cards and from the Shaman Stream Oracle, which is one of my favorite Oracle decks. I don't really get to use this deck much on my channel, but or even lately personally, but I just had this 4 cards that came out because I was asking what does the collective need to know. I was asking my angels, spirits, the ancestors, what messages that the collective needs to know. And the first card we have is 40 Mindful. It's called Groupthink, and this is about what you are feeding your mind. What content are you feeding your mind? What content are you consuming? What information are you receiving and keeping, allowing to clutter your mind? Are you allowing the information you receive, the gossip that you may be partaking in, or any thought that that may be shared with other people? How are you letting it influence your thoughts, your actions, your behaviors, the way you perceive things? How do you let the information or this line of thinking, this group think, especially if you like, all right, I'm gonna use this as an example. Everybody's talking about this trial, and I'm not even gonna say the person's name. This trial, everybody's talking about it. There's a lot of channels talking about all that, but what is the whole purpose of that? Why do we need to know about what's going on with that when it has nothing to do with us? And it's not about, and I'm not saying that because it's like, oh, we shouldn't care. But the thing is, that's a them issue, I feel like it's a distraction. It's distracting people. It's distracting people from focusing on what they're supposed to pay attention to. And the most important thing you need to pay attention to is how you are taking care of yourself. Because how you take care of yourself is how you take care of others. If you're someone who maybe engaging in gossip, always looking at things from a negative perspective, you deceive yourself in any way, how is that helping you? What purpose does that serve you? So you have to think about what you're allowing in your mind, what is going to help you grow and flourish, and what things in your life are the types of things that causes this to degenerate in some way. But then we also have the 46 card, the root girl, the disowned self. So, we're distracted by all these things. Like, I'm going to say the trial. That's a perfect example of that. You could even talk about the wars and all that stuff. We should care about what's going on with other people, but we should also be caring about what's going on with ourselves. And I'm not saying to be completely detached from other people's experiences, but I think it's important for you to be present in your own, because certain things are beyond our control. We could help as much as we can by volunteering and donating to charities, or even putting ourselves out on the lines to help people, right? But when in this reading, it's about you. It's about you taking care of yourself. And the root girl, the disowned self, is the part of you that you don't want to acknowledge, the part of you that you try to push down, you ignore, and don't want to face. The parts of you that I don't want to say disapprove, but the parts of you that you don't accept, the parts of you that you want to ignore out of existence, There's parts of you that you're going to have to face, that you're going to have to accept, parts of you that you're going to have to love. And you can't be distracted by whatever else is going outside of you. When there's a part of you that needs to be seen, there's a part of you that needs to be heard, and there's a part of you that needs to be loved. You may be going through, there may be something, maybe you're going through some healing, inner child wound healing, because a lot of the wounds that we have I know people like, oh, you're a little snowflake, blah blah blah, but you know, like sometimes, you know, if you really care and you see you react to certain things in a way that's really unnecessary, it's because there's a part of you that needs to acknowledge. Yeah, because this is the part you don't want to acknowledge, right? That's something you need to acknowledge, and you have to understand, like, why do I react this way to that, you know? And you have to work through it. But then you also are going to have to adapt with it. You have to, in the book, it mentions with this own self, or this own self, that you have to integrate all parts of yourself so that you can feel complete and whole. The way you talk to other people, even talk about other people, if you have envy, if you're you like to put people down, disrespect people, in some way you're projecting your own insecurities, fears, and self limitations on someone else, you know? And that's something that you have to work on. We have to work on, you know, because when we're feeling complete and whole, then we see how we can help other people be whole and complete themselves. You know, we can help other people. When we help ourselves, we in turn help other people. When we help ourselves heal and other people see that, they acknowledge that motivates them, that inspires them to want to heal themselves too, you know? And you know, it's about you integrating this part of yourself, taking the time to, you know, not allow yourself to be distracted by external influences, but going within and learning how to integrate the parts of yourself that you don't want to acknowledge and adapt to those things. Adapt with putting that part of yourself that you don't want, that you have to acknowledge. You can't ignore it anymore, you know, because if this child doesn't show up now, it's going to show up in unexpected moments, you know, and then, you know, you're going to have to, you may do or say things that you can't take back, you know. But it's about you adapting into this transition, or this initiation into wholeness. It's about you becoming whole with yourself, whole and complete within yourself, you know. It's about finding who you are, discovering all your little nooks and crannies, all the parts of yourself that you have yet to discover. You know, there may be some parts of you that you have buried because you don't want to see it, you don't want to feel it, you know, you don't want anybody else to see it because it always shows up. It always shows up, you know. Not everybody's paying attention, but there are some people who do see, you know. And you know, you going through this transition of taking the time to work on those little parts of yourself that are begging, crying for you to see them, you know. It's like you're gonna be entering this new phase of who you are as a person, you know. And I think that's one of the contracts that we probably sign in. This is if you believe in contracts, like soul contracts. We have people that come into our lives that are meant to help us, and you know, that's the thinking. You know, someone comes into your life, they can be a karmic soulmate, and the purpose of that is just to initiate some sort of transformation in your life, you know. And that's their contract. But you also have a contract with yourself, you know, where you have to fulfill your purpose of becoming the whole and complete person we were born to be. You know, when we were born, we weren't born with with limitations. They were taught to us. They were conditioned. We were conditioned to be a certain way. So for us to feel whole and complete and be an inspiration to others, and sometimes we don't really care about being an inspiration, but we do so unintentionally, you know, just because we embrace who we are inside and out, you know. But it's about you, the initiation of you becoming who you are meant to be, who you were meant to be, who you were born to be, you know. And it's this deep diver underneath. Okay, so it's the number 7, right? I noticed the cards have 40, 46, 64, 54. So there's a lot of 4s. So you may be seeing 444, 4444. You may be seeing 4664. You know, maybe you know, any sequence of numbers like that, but just fours. And that's about spiritual protection. It's about, I know I've been seeing that number a lot, but we have the covenant is the contract, the sacred contract, and that's number 7, right? And then this deep diver is diving into a task. This, you know, you going through this initiation is going to require you to dive deep. You dive into places within yourself that you have never explored. And please don't have a dirty mind, okay? I'm sorry. But you know, and this has to do a lot with delving deep into your emotions, you know, the emotions that you may have felt like were emotions you shouldn't feel, emotions that you were told you were not allowed to experience, that you had to sit still and be quiet. Stop crying. You're a big boy. You're a big girl. Big boys and big girls don't cry. That might mean something to you. You know? Underneath that was the number 3, benefactor. You going into this deep dive within yourself and discovering parts of yourself that you have yet to discover. It's going to be a process that is going to require you to have grace with yourself, you to have patience, and also for you to give yourself the time. Be generous with yourself in some way, because you know, sometimes we could be all sympathetic and empathetic and caring and understanding to other people's plight, but then sometimes we put ours in the back burner. And I feel like with this, saying the same grace and generosity you extend to others, extend that to yourself as well. I feel like, yeah, because it's going to be an empty well, you know. If you're giving to other situations and you are neglecting yourself, you're going to run on empty. And what you need during this time especially is to take care of yourself and make sure that your energetic levels are high, so that you can go into this deep dive and have the energy, also the grace, and be generous with yourself. Take time to rest where you need it. Replenish yourself, take care of yourself, rest, eat well, hydrate. You know. Wow, you know what's underneath? Whale song, resonating. Number 61, resonating. So some of you may be resonating with this message. You know, maybe there's something in here that I said that you needed to hear, that you may have been thinking about, but you didn't know exactly what to do or what it was that you were feeling. But like through this process, this is something that you could go through on your own, or you could go through with support. So you could go and seek some sort of counseling. Like if you are someone who goes to church, maybe you could go, I don't know how churches help with people with this type of work, you know. So you may want to see a psychologist, no, I don't want to say psychiatrist, a psychologist, a therapist, a social worker, a clinical social worker, someone who could give therapy, because, you know, to do this work, you know, you may need support during this time, especially if you're going to be diving into certain things that may bring up past experiences that may also bring up emotions tied to those experiences. So I feel like you really, if you need the support, you know, if you don't, I feel like you should see some sort of professional, because there may be some sensitive stuff that you may not want to share with someone because of, you know, the level of vulnerability that this type of work is going to require. But I feel like if you do have someone that you can trust who can guide you and help you through this process, then, you know, you do what you do and seek the help that you feel like you need, okay? But I feel like this is a calling for us to really not deny the parts of ourselves that we know we've hidden away. You know, If you feel like there's a part of you that feels incomplete and not whole, then it's something that you cannot feel from external influences. You can't find an answer outside of yourself, and you most likely have been. Somehow you may have been trying to improve yourself, like with your career, your education, with money, with a specific lifestyle, and you still feel unfulfilled. And it's because all those things cannot fulfill you in the way that you taking time to introspect, learn, discover, rediscover parts of yourself that have been hidden away. Maybe you felt like that part of yourself was no longer useful, but it's like, yeah, but I'm still part of you. You know what I mean? So I hope this reading was helpful in some way. It was a little deeper than I expected. I was a little afraid to do this reading because I was like, oh, I don't know if I can convey the message the way I feel like it needs to be conveyed. So if you stay to the end, I applaud you and I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video, and I hope it was helpful in some way or somehow. If it was, please like, share, and subscribe to Aries Oracle. My name is Tan. I am your reader, and I'm wishing you a lovely day ahead.